The winner in the poetry category of the Canadian Jewish Literary Awards this year is Swoon by Elana Wolff. Swoon is a collection that explores a variety of subjects, but returns again and again to our longing for transcendence. Informed by Jewish texts and contexts, with a sure-handed control of language and image, the poems are passionate but mature, precise and curious, willing to risk everything for a chance to slip behind the curtain of the familiar to get a glimpse of the divine.
I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Israel and Golda Kashitsky Center for Jewish Studies at York University, to the jurors of the 2020 Canadian Jewish Literary Awards, to you in particular, Adam Saul, to Michael Marola, Connie McParland, Anna Van Valkenburg, and the staff at Guernica Editions. To you, Julie Feinberg at the Center for Jewish Studies, for directing the recording of this presentation. And to my very dear ones, you know who you are. It's quite lovely to have one's work recognized. Okay, I'd like to read two poems. The first poem, Ovarian, is framed as a recollection that tells something about marriage, Jewish marriage, mine, motherhood, faith, going under. That's part of the Swoon theme, and faith in crisis. Ovarian. What do I remember of that cardinal time of life? What some might call zodiacal. Aries, Cancer in the balance, wanting on and on to go, maybe, as they say, till 120. The children still so young, the fluff of their favorite flannel pajamas in our nostrils, in our bed. I read somewhere that inner organs glow, deep pink and jiggly, all except the ovaries. They're dull and gray and pitted by release of every egg. The older the woman, the duller and grayer the organs. But it was spring, and I was also young. Was it that we heard a quack and found a mother duck inside the shrub beside our driveway, sitting on her eggs so far removed from any water? The three of us recoiled. She left the nest. That's what I remember from the time before the tests, and lying in the corridor on operation day, patients in the hall on gurneys, all of us lined up. I remember saying that I think it's just the start. You were standing by my side, gripping the crook of my arm till they came to take me. You'll be in the waiting room, I said, that windowless cube, joking just a little for reprieve. Your being there will make me right, is what I didn't say. Like when you blow the candles on a cake and make a wish. Okay, I'll read another husband and wife poem, which is also a fish poem. Little bit of background. I've been on a Franz Kafka quest for several years now, and there are a number of Franz Kafka themed poems in this collection. This one revisits a trip that my husband and I took to Třešť in the Czech Republic, a small town that Kafka frequently visited to see his favorite uncle, Siegfried, titled Surfacing Behavior. Venoský Pond, Třešť, Czech Republic. The pond alive with them, leaping, thwacking like paddles upon re-entry. The sound of it loud and out of the blue. You don't expect these fish, they look like carp, to breach like humpbacks. You don't expect this tranquil water to clap. I like the way you call from the car, roused as much as I am by the action. I am at the pond side with the camera, poised to shoot the proof. Swans are on the water also, whites and pale gray juveniles approaching. It's possible I've never had an accurate sense of distance, which is to say, I fear their teeth on my toes. I snap the jumpers, fish at once so fully of the water, oddly not. I capture golden bodies aloft, mid-wriggle, gleeful in the leaping, or at least it seems to me. Maybe it's display, a sign. Perhaps they're on their way to whale with imminent lungs and blowholes. It's possible I've never had an accurate sense of mystery, which is to say, their realness is their glee. The swans emerging at the grass back me to the Škoda you haven't left. Anyhow, we're good to go. We've seen the small Czech town where young Franz Kafka came in summer to visit his uncle Siegfried, country doctor of Trescht, at that time Trish. Lay naked by the pond, he wrote, rode his uncle's motorcycle, herded cows and goats, played quoits, fell for a short-sighted girl by way of her fat, foreshortened legs, and went to temple. Thank you.
So Elana, tell us a little more about your fascination with Kafka. What is it about him that seems to speak so poignantly about modern Jewish life?
I suppose when I first came to Kafka, I was in my teens, and he kind of just dropped on my lap. So there was this kind of fabulous or fantastical aspect of the way he came to me. And the first story I read, as many do, is the Metamorphosis. And I was completely blown away by it, frankly. It was unlike anything that I'd been presented with. And I was very much on my own with it. At the time, I didn't realize that Kafka was Jewish, which is interesting. There's actually nothing in Kafka's fiction that would give that away directly. Right. But I have to say that not long after I discovered the Metamorphosis, or it discovered me, I spent a gap year in Israel. And I read the trial, the process, lying on grass in a kibbutz. And again, I was just blown away. I was moved by Kafka in a way that I just wasn't. And I kept trying to figure it out. And I suppose that I felt that there was something deeply Jewish about Kafka. It was that maybe it was this deep sense of responsibility and guilt, I hate to say that, that was there. And then the ending scene, it felt almost like a sort of Akedat Yitzchak, like the binding of Isaac. And then I discovered his biography, and it made sense. First, he spoke to me as deeply Jewish without my having known that he was Jewish. And then I came to him, I suppose, as a Jewish author in a very biblical setting. And it just continued from there. It's a very long story. It's convoluted. And he kept coming back to me in these sort of miraculous or fabulous or absurdist ways, which are, these are the ways that we often think of Kafka. Sometimes in this sort of dryly humorous as well.
Right.
And so I think that is a connection coming through Kafka as in a non-Jewish way, not realizing that he was Jewish. And of course, he struggled with his Jewish identity.
Sure.
He came to his Jewishness long and hard, right? And he came also to his connection to Hebrew and to his connection to Eretz Israel, that he referred to as Palestine. Of course, it was and is to many. That's a whole other topic. And so there's that aspect too, that struggle with being Jewish. What is it to be Jewish? To be deeply Jewish in one's experience and then wrestle with it, contest it. I think that's maybe the short answer, which is not such a short answer. But there's much, much more that I could say because I've been tracking Kafka for many years now.
That's great.
On the ground, geographically, biographically, and of course in the oeuvre.
Good. So I want to get back to the wrestling. I want to go deeper into the wrestling question and ask you about, for your own connection between Jewish subjects and other kinds of transcendence that are in the book. There are poems about nature, there's romantic love, these are subjects that don't always appear in Jewish literary tradition. So can you say something about how your Jewish and secular selves wrestle together in your poetry?
Well, of course, we do have the secular self, and we have the spiritual self. It's interesting that you use the word transcendent and transcendence in your citation and your blurb about my work. It's not a word that I personally have used. Certainly there's the longing, that kmiha, this reaching for the divine, but I don't use the word divine either.
Right.
So interestingly, I use the word fate. And that's a word that we don't always associate with the Jewish tradition, but it's there. I mean, we just read it now at Mincha in Yonah, in the Goral, right? The Goral, which is a lot, which has the meaning of lot as in lottery, but it also has that meaning of destiny. So I suppose that there's always this struggle between destiny, fate, faith, freedom, which are, of course, Jewish subjects and also general subjects. I mean, they're human. What I think is maybe particularly Jewish and what feels immediately Jewish to me in this whole notion of the transcendent. It's this openness in Jewish poetry and Jewish literature to the miraculous. It's very much part of it. And so it's just there oddly, in a natural way. Naturally miraculous.
Right.
So it's just there. So it's there in nature. It's there through the birds, which are huge and very emblematic in my poetry, always have been. But they're there in Jewish literature as well. Of course, in this particular book, there's reference to scripture. There's the context that you speak of and the text. So there is the scriptural there, but there's also the whole wide world and how we fit into it and how we dialogue with it and how we, how I and my family, I as an observant Jewish person Shomeret Shabbat, Shomeret Kashrut. And how do I keep that? How do I keep that sort of that private self that's very inner and very much a part of my home identity? And how do I bring that to the world and negotiate the world and interact with the world in a way that is also natural to that, where I don't feel that I have to reveal myself fully, where there's something kept back. That's also very connected to Kafka, I have to say. There's always something kept back,
Right.
not revealed, concealed. I think it's all there.
Good. Well, I've been a fan of your work for a long time, Elana, and I'm very proud that the Canadian Jewish Literary Awards have been able to honor this book. It's really a terrific book in this way.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. And I have long been a fan of your work too. Right back to Jonah's Promise.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.